Grab one of these 3-drawer bins from Walmart and we are going to dress this up. I picked up some half-round pieces of wood and I need to cut them down to roughly 4.5 inches each. Now it's time to attach them to the drawers. I want to cover the front of the drawer to give this kind of a natural boho look. I picked up a multi-surface glue, so this is going to work really well on wood and plastic, and it dries clear. So I'm just going to put a dab of glue on each piece of wood and put them all the way across the drawer. Now that everything's dry, I'm going to take this outside and add a coat of spray paint. I'm opting for a real neutral beige color, and I'm going to cover the front of the drawer and the wood. I opted to leave the rest of the drawer set white. I really like the contrast between the beige and the white, and I think these drawers look so good. It is such an upgrade from the basic drawer set that I had originally.
I wanted the frame to have some depth, so I picked up the kind of weather stripping that has a double loop to it. I want to make sure they're all a little bit longer than the mirror so that they cover the edges up. And I like to use an old box to make sure that I've got them perfectly cut. To make the weather stripping look more like a pretty frame, I'm going to paint it. Now it's time to adhere the weather stripping to the mirror. The foam has double-sided tape on the back, so all I need to do is peel off the cover strips and I'm ready to stick it into place.
Grab some 2x2s to increase your bathroom storage in a few easy steps. I cut 4 2x2s to 6 feet each and cut 6 to 19 inches, and I cut another 6 to 4 inches each. I sanded all the boards, then used my Craig jig to drill pocket holes in each side of the smallest 2x2. I secured the 4-inch boards to the 19-inch boards with pocket screws and wood glue, and used a countersink bit to pre-drill the long 2x2 to the rectangle frame. I filled the screw holes with wood filler on the front side only and sanded the excess off smooth once dry. I wiped, cleaned, and painted the frame. While that was drying, I sanded cedar 1x6 boards, ripped them down to size, and sealed them with 2 coats of polyurethane. I used a brad nailer to secure the cedar boards to the top of each rectangle base and slid the shelf over my toilet.
I wanted to give this wall behind a toilet a feature without spending money. We'd recently changed the flooring and I had 1 box of luxury vinyl plank flooring left over. I started with the first plank at the top of the wall. I made sure it was level. I continued attaching pieces and securing them with the nail gun. At the bottom, I cut the plank so that it wouldn't interfere with the water line. The wall was looking great, but I needed to work on the trim pieces at the end. Since there were leftover materials lying around, I bought some L brackets and attached them to the 1x4 pieces. I then set these where I wanted them on the wall, made sure they were level, and attached them. I ran down to the hardware store and picked up 2 sheets of beadboard. Then I measured and cut the beadboard down to size using a table saw. I attached it to the wall with my nail gun. It took no time at all. The next step was to add a wood border to the top. I used very inexpensive common board. Then I painted the top of it before attaching it to the wall. When I attached the board, there was a small gap between the wood and beadboard, but it was easy to fill this gap using paintable caulking. Once that dried, I got started with painting. In order to finish off my beadboard accent, I added hooks. I always thought that changing shower fixtures was an impossible thing for me to do. Happily, I was wrong and I was able to update this shower in a day and for just under $100. To remove the shower arm and shower head. The next part was to add the new shower arm. First, I wrapped it with the tape that comes in the kit. This helps it fit snugly. Then I screwed it in as tight as I could by hand. After the arm was in place, it was just a matter of screwing the new shower head in place. To remove the handle, I pried off the little cover using my flathead screwdriver again. Once this is off, the center screw is exposed and can be removed. I used my flathead screwdriver and a razor to remove the plate. Added in the sticky foam gasket piece and then screwed it all into place. The next step was to add the handle, which is secured in place by a screw at the bottom. I turned the spout upside down and there was a little screw there that I loosened with an Allen wrench. I added an adapter for the new spout and then just screwed it into place. The last step was removing the block-off plate, which just involved my flathead screwdriver once again. I'll show you how $35 in tile can transform your bathroom, and it's not in the way you think. I added liquid nails to the backs of the tiles and started mounting them to the mirror. I just added a little bit more liquid nails to the pieces that were going over the clips. Then I added a second row of tiles, and after that I started working my way up the sides of the mirror. Started adding tape as needed. The next day I removed the tape. I purchased some black caulking. I added it along the edges. After I added the caulking, I wiped it away using the lint-free cloth with the mineral spirits. See how one long weekend and a few DIY projects transformed this bathroom. I purchased a 60-inch kitchen sink base. I painted it, applying several coats. I had granite cut for the top. Using leftover vinyl plank flooring, I attached several pieces to the wall, grabbed some trim pieces, I cut these to size, painted them a dark gray that coordinated with the hexagonal tile, and then simply put those on the edges of the vinyl plank accent that I had installed. The only thing left now was the back wall, so the quickest and easiest thing to do was to cover it. The next step was to take some scrap wood pieces, painted them with the same paint again, added some inexpensive brackets, and mounted them to the wall.
So I went to the dollar store and I bought 3 bags of those vase filler gems. After sorting them, I washed them off using Blue Dawn and water and then laid them out to dry. I drew lines from the edge of the vanity to meet the mirror line. I applied a thin coat of mastic using a small notched trowel. Then the fun began as I pressed the gems into the mastic. I worked in small sections so the mastic wouldn't dry too quickly. Once I was done, I mixed the grout. I mixed 1 cup of grout to a half a cup of water. I applied the grout in small sections, making sure I was pushing it between each of the gems. I wanted to make sure that every spot was filled in between them. After 1 hour, I checked again, and yep, it was nice and dry. Using a large spun and plain water, I washed away all of the excess grout. I removed the painter's tape that I had placed on the top of the vanity and applied caulk, smoothing it out with my finger.
Grab a 1/4 inch thick ply, wood numbers, and a bunch of flour. I started by cutting the 1/4 inch thick plywood. Next, I began assembling. I glued the frame pieces on top and either sides. Then I put together the pieces for the box. The box is then attached to the backer board. I added extra weights on top to help it bond. Next, I sanded all the sides to smooth the edges and then painted the whole box. I applied attractive base colors to both sides of the signboard. While While this dries, I crafted permanent vinyl stickers using a Cricut machine. Next, I added 2 white hooks underneath the box. I drilled holes to the signboard and attached twine to hang it on the hooks. I then installed sawtooth hanger on the back of the baseboard. After that, I placed some foam inside the box and arranged colorful flowers to my liking. Next, I painted the wooden numbers black and fixed them on the box.
Take 2 styrofoam blocks and glue them together using a cool melt glue gun. Take that wire hanger and bend it. Take 2 pipe cleaners and twist the ends together. Do this as well with another set of 2 pipe cleaners. Position the wire hanger hook on top of the styrofoam block and secure it by wrapping the pipe cleaners up and around the hook. Twist the ends securely and tuck them in. Start to stick the faux stems into the top and sides of the styrofoam block. Now take some faux flowers, continue to fill in the empty spaces with other flowers, and hang your new flower arrangement.
I went to my local craft store and I found these adorable miniature watering cans. Here is the glue we're going to be using. I'm going to place a little bit on wherever the metals are touching. Now we can take our flowers and begin working them in. Now we're going to do the same thing to the second watering can.
I began my project by taking my drill. I just made the watering can holes on the spout a little bit larger. I took my string of fairy lights and I pushed them up through the opening of the spout. You're going to weave it back down out the opening again. We're going to repeat this process. I drilled some holes in the sides just so that you could see the lights from inside the can as well. This is my flat back basket, and then this is the arrangement that I have that I stick in here every spring. So I stick one command strip on the glass on my door and then the other one on the back of the basket.
Grab tin cans and a napkin for this brilliant porch decor. I washed 3 tin cans from the recycling, removed the labels, and scuffed up the surface with a wire brush. I wiped clean with a cloth and spray painted the outside of each can with Rust-Oleum paint and primer white spray paint. While that was drying, I spray painted some metal chain black. I set that aside to dry. I used a small drill bit to drill 3 holes evenly spaced along the top edge of the tin can. I drilled holes in the same spots at the bottom edge and the same spots again at the very bottom of the tin can. Then I cut the napkins into smaller pieces and cut around the birds. I painted outdoor Mod Podge on the tin can, placed the napkin pieces on, and sealed it with more Mod Podge. I did this for all 3 tin cans, then used a nail to poke through the holes I drilled to make sure the glue didn't close them over. I let the cans dry. 24 hours is ideal.
Do you have random faux flowers around your house that don't seem to go together? Start by organizing them by color and type of flower. Fill the bottom of the planter with floral foam stacked vertically next to each other. Tuck them in tightly and fill as much of the planter as possible. Once the foam is snug in the planter, take wooden floral picks and press them into the floral foam with about an inch sticking out. Now, take more floral foam and press them on top of the floral picks so the block is secure and doesn't move. Next, create 4 to 5 bows from ribbon and floral wire. Once all the wire is secure, stick the wood pick into the side of a foam block in the planter. Now, let's add the flowers. Think in terms of color blocking so that similar flowers are placed in the planter together. Start with tall flowers in the back and then add shorter flowers in a contrasting color in front of them.
Now you want to make sure that your glass bowls are very clean. So I'm going to pull it from the edge and I'm going to take a gray Crayola crayon and I am going to draw right on my bowl. The next step is you want to take some silver glitter glue and I'm going to paint my jar with the glitter glue in a crosshatch pattern. I'm going to be using these out of doors, so you definitely have to use some kind of a sealer. The next thing I'm going to do is take some fairy lights and put them right down inside of my jar.
I grabbed one basket and 10 of these wooden pieces. I set to work staining them using these easy staining cloths. Once they were dry, I set up 2 of the wooden pieces vertically, and then I added the rest of my wooden pieces horizontally. Used some 1-inch nails and put those in place. I had purchased these 4-inch house numbers. I nailed these into place. The next thing I did to finish it up was to add some pretty flowers.
I grabbed 2 hanging baskets and liners from Dollar Tree for this epic garden project. I unclipped the chains off of one of the baskets and placed the liners in each basket. Next, I used sharp scissors to cut a slit in the middle of each section and in the center hole at the bottom. Then I grabbed some petunias from my local garden center and carefully placed them into each hole. Planting from the outside worked best for me. I set it aside and repeated the same steps for the second basket. Next, I filled the center of each basket with potting soil and watered it. I gently placed one basket on top of the other and secured them together using 4 black zip ties. At that point, I decided to add in a few more flowers on the edge where the baskets meet.
I'm just going to start working on adding these flowers. I'm going to add some hot glue. I'm just going to work those all out like that. I'm going to go with the next one, and I'm going to go around. I'm going to get my wire cutters and cut some of these apart, and then I'm going to try and put it right where I want it. And I'm just going to try and wire right in the base. Cut these ends. I'm going to turn this back over and do the same thing on the other side of the nest. There are hooks on our little birds.
Let's run on down to Walmart, and it's time to grab your favorite inexpensive bucket. We got to get those handles off. We don't need those. Take them off both sides. They clip right off. Next, we're going to take that bucket and flip it over. We need to set in 2 strips of wood that are going to fit right on the edge. Just go ahead and set it down there. No need for a tape measure, and just mark it with a pencil. What you're going to need is definitely 2 of these. Just use your favorite saw. It's easy to do. Next, stick them on there. Make sure they fit just right inside the grooves. Then you can use some hot glue. Just 3 good dabs on the edge will do it. Just flip it over and press it against the plastic. Now I know what you're thinking. This glue does not hold permanently. That's okay. We just needed to hold until we can flip it back over. So do that to both pieces right on the edge and just hold it down till it sets. Takes about 20 seconds. Next, flip the bucket over, and what you're going to do is grab just some small little screws. They don't need to be long. We don't want them to pop out through the end of the wood. So just take your drill and put it right in. 2 or 3 in each strip of wood will be just right. Just put it in there, don't over tighten, and that's going to hold it in place. Now it's time to put on the wheels. I got these little inexpensive caster wheels, but I need the drill bit to be just the right size, and we're going to mark it 1 inch from each side of the wood. We're going to put 4 of these legs on. So once you get them marked, let's go ahead and we're going to drill it. You can just drill all the way through the plastic. It's not going to be a problem because when we set the leg in, it's going to block the hole. So these little wheels are perfect. Now it's time to take that hot glue, put it right on the edge of the hole there, and put the leg on. It's going to hold it just great. Now, if you don't want to use hot glue and you want a little different glue, go ahead. It'll work also. Just let it set up. I like using hot glue because it's fast. Once we get the legs in, look at this. They are excellent. Exactly what we need. Now it's time to go ahead and decorate the bucket. I grabbed this twine over at Dollar Tree. Just take again our favorite hot glue, put it right on the edge. This is our starter piece. Just stick it right on there. You want to make sure this first row is perfect. I use the edge of this bucket right on this line, and that's going to be what I call my datum line. Just go ahead and set it all the way around, and we're going to go around the whole bucket. Once you get that on, it's time to take a little bit of your inexpensive fabric, cut about 12 inches wide. We're going to use that hot glue again, and we're going to fold over the edge. That's going to give us a nice edge to finish this off. What I did was I just worked my way down with that hot glue and kept folding it over. Be careful, because it can get a little hot. Once we get both edges nice and done, what we're going to do is fold it over the bucket. It's going to cover all that plastic. Get that glue right on that last bit of rope right there. Spread it over and just mark it down right there. We're going to take this all the way around the bucket, and look at this. This is going to be a great container. We can store books, dog toys, or even toys for the grandkids. It turned out great.
Grab a plastic bin from Walmart for this project. I'm going to start by drilling a few holes into the side of the bin. This is going to be for handles down the road. Then I'm going to flip the bin over and I'm going to drill 4 holes, one in each corner of the plastic bin. I want to dress this bin up, so I picked up some gray and white patterned fabric, and I've cut it down to size so that it is the right height of the bin. Now I'm going to use some spray adhesive to adhere the fabric to the plastic. When I get to the corners, I am going to cut up the side, and then I can just fold these 2 pieces over each other, creating a really nice looking seam. To add the handles, I'm going to locate the hole that I drilled with my finger and then just poke through the fabric with a pair of scissors. Now I can thread the jute through and tie a knot on the inside to secure it in place. Now I'm going to add some feet to the bottom to raise this up off the ground and just make it look a little nicer. And there you have it. I have a really nice looking bin that I can keep out in the open. It looks so much better than your basic plastic bin, and I can store all kinds of stuff in here.
I have this storage container and I'd love to use it for my office supplies, but I really don't want to see what's inside. I'm starting by giving the container a quick sanding so that the surface is a little rougher. To make the outside look a little better, I want to add some clay designs before I do anything else. I always dust my molds with cornstarch before adding the air dry clay so that it releases easily when I'm done. I'm just going to keep adding clay until the mold is slightly overfilled. To remove the excess clay, I'm going to take an old ruler and just run it from the middle of the design to the outside edge. Now it's time to release the clay. Look at that beautiful flower and all those details. For right now, I'm just going to lay the clay where I want it. I've gone ahead and made some more impressions, and I'm going to lay them all out on the side of the container. Now that I've decided where I want the impressions, I'm using some tacky glue to stick them in place. Once they're all glued, I'm just going to leave this to dry overnight. With the clay stuck in place and dry, it's time to paint them. I've chosen a silver spray paint for the first coat. This is going to cover the clear container and provide a really nice background. Now that the silver spray paint is dry, it's time to give the container a beautiful faux stone look. I'm using stone spray. It's a textured spray with different shades of beiges to give the look of stone. The trick with this spray is to do a lot of light coats. Each coat has to dry, and then the next extra coat will help to build up that faux stone. I think this box and the texture are so fun. I love that what's inside is hidden now as well. The next time you're at the dollar store, grab one of these inexpensive plastic bins and give it a farmhouse makeover. I want to give this storage piece a farmhouse feel, so I headed to my paint supplies and grabbed some sandpaper and white paint. Before painting the bin though, I want to make sure that the surface is roughed up a bit, so I'm going to give it a quick sanding with some medium grit sandpaper. Now that the bin is ready, I'm going to give it a coat of white paint. I'm not going to go and paint the inside of the bin because I actually like the gray and it'll match the dresser next to where it will be. To create the farmhouse look that I want, I'm going to add some faux wood grain. I'm using a chip brush because of its uneven bristles and some brown glaze. Only a little bit of the glaze is needed on the brush, and then I just lightly sweep it across the surface. This creates the faux wood, and I can even create some faux knots with the glaze as well. If I want to soften up the lines, just this damp paper towel is all that I need. Once I've finished all the sides with the glaze and the faux wood grain, I'm going to leave it to dry overnight. Now that the paint and glaze are completely dry, I want to fancy up the handles a little bit. I've grabbed some of this thick twine and I'm going to wrap it around each one. I'm going to use a little dab of hot glue to hold each of the ends in place.
I love the rustic touch the twine gives to the bin.
I love how pretty this plastic bin looks now. You wouldn't even know it's the same one. A little bit of paint and it was easy to do. I hope this has inspired you to give your plastic bins a makeover as well.
You'll want to head to the nearest store to pick up a cute outdoor carpet after seeing this fabulous summertime hack. I love sitting outdoors in my yard. However, I have an open section of chain link fence that doesn't offer the privacy I desire. So here's how I got all the privacy I wanted in just a few minutes without building anything at all. I'm positioning the carpet against the fence, then I'm slightly separating the carpet weave to create a gap. Then I'm threading the zip ties through the carpet and attaching it to the fence. I chose to roll the carpet at the bottom of the fence in case I'd like to eventually move it to another location. Each corner is getting some zip ties, along with a few along the sides and top to ensure the carpet is pulled nice and taut. Each of the zip tie ends are now being trimmed off with scissors. With plenty of zip ties in place, this carpet is here to stay, and super easy to remove when desired too. Here's hoping this carpet hack gave you some added inspiration to add an easy privacy screen to your own yard in just a few minutes.
I finally got that hot tub that I've always wanted in the back porch, but neighbors are kind of close. First thing I'm going to do is get this free pallet I got, and it actually is in really good shape, but I've got to remove all the nails to use the boards. So I'm going to use my crowbar and my hammer, and I'm going to go through and very carefully loosen some of the boards, but you can't do the whole thing all at once. You got to work your way up and down and go back and forth to loosen the nails. Don't try to pull it all off at one time. You'll crack the boards. The reason I want to use this is as a free pallet, it's going to save me a lot of money on all the boards. Once you work your way up and down, look at that. It comes right out and it's easy to use. But we got to get rid of those nails. So all you got to do is turn it over. Go ahead and tap those nails on one side. Throw it back over the other side. Use the claw on your hammer. You can pull it apart or just use your hands and they'll pop right out. Now you've got a ton of boards you can use. Next step is to use 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe. We're going to cut 4 pieces at 12 inches long. This is going to be the base of a privacy screen. I'm using a PVC cutter here because it gives it a nice clean cut edge. You can use a hacksaw if you need to. Now the next step is to get a T. As you can see, 2 ends are 1 1/4 and the top is actually 1 inch. So take 2 of your 12-inch pieces and you're going to place that on each side of your base. This is going to give you a base of 24 inches. Next step we got to do is once we get the 2 legs together, we're going to paint them black. Now I'm going to take the 1-inch sides that are 4 feet long, and I'm going to use those with a spacer so each board is separated the same distance. You can lay them out and eyeball them this way if you want, or you can take a straight board and use that as a guide on getting all the slats straight. Once I do that, put them all in there, I'm going to take a 1 1/4 inch drywall screw and just drive it through the wood. And I'm going to use the same holes that I used pulling the nails out. That way we're not putting extra holes in there. As you can see, I can take the PVC pipe and bring it off the edge. It doesn't need to go all the way on the side. This one on the other side, it's already straight, ready to go. Just put it underneath. And again, you're going to pop those screws right in. Now you're going to take that base and you're going to put it on each end of your privacy screen. Now you can glue it, but I'm just going to go pop it on and it holds up really nice. The next step and the last step is to put some hooks on because I've got a great idea for it. It can hold up the towels too. So not only do I got a privacy screen, but I've got someplace to let my towels air out and dry.
We're going to start with a roll of window film. This is non-adhesive. It is a cling film, which makes it a great temporary solution for privacy and a great solution for renters. Now, instead of just applying this to the window, we're going to roll it out and create a design with this. So I'm using a cutting mat here because it's got some grid lines on it. You can also just use a ruler. I'm going to cut a sheet of film just a little bit larger than the size of my glass. There are 2 sides to this window film. There's the frosted side and then there's a clear carrier sheet on the back. I'm going to place my piece down with that clear carrier sheet on the table. Then I'm going to use some painter's tape to just tape it down flat. Now using a pencil, I'm just going to sketch a design onto the film so I can cut it out. You want to use something with simple, straightforward designs that you can cut apart. Now I'm going to grab a craft knife. You can use the scissors for this, but if you get a good sharp craft knife, it's going to be a lot easier. And I'm just going to slowly cut out each piece. So just running my knife along all those pencil lines. I'm going to do this for every line that I drew, kind of leave the pieces where they are, but separate them a little bit. Everything is cut out. Now I am going to take this whole cutting mat, take the whole thing over to my bathroom. I want to leave all these pieces in the right order, and we're going to start applying it to the window. First step is to clean your window really well. You want to start with a spray bottle full of water. This window film adheres to the window through static cling, but adding some water to the window is going to help it stick really well. So spray your window with water, and then grab that first cut out piece. I'm going to start on the bottom and peel off the clear carrier sheet from the back, and then gently place it onto the window. What you're going to need is a squeegee tool. I'm using a little craft scraper. You can also use a credit card from your wallet. Then you're going to continue with all the other pieces. Now I want to let a little light shine in, so I'm leaving about 1/4 of an inch of space between each piece, using that squeegee each time and just pressing down really well. I cut this piece of window film a little bit bigger than my window, so you're going to have some pieces that hang off on the edges, and that's okay. As we get toward the end, we can trim those off. So now that we're nearing the end here, I'm going to use my craft knife and just cut off these edges here. Be very gentle that you're not pushing too hard and damaging your frame or the caulk or any part of your window. The final step in all of this, once all the pieces are on, you want to make sure to dry any excess water. So grab your squeegee or your credit card and push out any bubbles. Sometimes those are water drops that are left underneath the film. And then just grab a paper towel and blot any water drops that are left. And that is it. We are finished. I now have some privacy in this bathroom. What I love is that some light does filter in, but at night when the light is on in this bathroom, people aren't going to be able to see in. This is also a temporary solution, so I can pull these pieces off whenever I need to. I hope this gives you an inspiring new idea to go try on your windows.
I wanted to brighten up this dark kitchen, but getting rid of the countertops completely and changing them to marble was just too expensive. The existing countertops were in great condition, granite, they just weren't what I wanted for the look of this kitchen anymore. First, I cleaned the countertops several times, making sure to get rid of any dust or debris. After everything was clean, I just lightly sanded the surface of the countertops using the little piece of sandpaper that came in the kit. I then covered up the area so that I could protect the cabinets. I also protected the backsplash a bit, but to be honest, I'm going to change out this backsplash, so I really wasn't too worried about it. So here I was, ready to start. I mixed up the paint and the activator, poured it into my tray, and started brushing it on. I brushed it along the backsplash and into the crevices, and then I used a roller to get it on the main surface of the countertop. This first coat didn't give great coverage, but I didn't expect it to. I was just getting the surface level stuff done and trying not to get any streaks or bubbles. Once that dried, I added a second coat. That might be enough for some applications, but since my countertop was black, I still had some color coming through, so I added a third coat, and that gave it the coverage that I wanted. The next step was to start painting on the veins of the marble. I used a couple of small paintbrushes that came in my kit, and I had washed the paintbrush that I had used for the white paint so that I could reuse it here again. I painted lines kind of haphazardly onto the countertop. The only thing I made sure to do was to have them going more or less in the same direction. After that, I added some water from the spray bottle, and I softened up the line using the paintbrush and also using a paper towel in some cases. I really wanted to kind of dull it a little bit. I didn't want really distinct lines because that's not the way that natural marble looks. I continued softening it until it achieved the look that I was going for. Once I was happy with it, my next step was to prep the epoxy. This involved mixing 2 solutions together and stirring it for 2 minutes. Since the epoxy may run off of the countertop, it was important to add tape to catch any epoxy that might drip over the sides. Pouring the epoxy on was easy, and then I just spread it using a little spreader that was included in my kit. I let it sit for several hours, and it started to shine and look great right away. You can see how the epoxy flows off of the countertop and onto the edges of the tape, so I'm really glad I had that there. Otherwise, I would have had a big mess to clean up off of the floor. A couple of hours after everything was dry, I simply removed the tape. I thought my countertops looked amazing. They looked completely natural and they lightened up the kitchen so very much. I love the way this project turned out. I hope this inspires you to try a faux marble project. After updating this 1980s kitchen, I knew it needed something more. I wanted to add backsplash, but I didn't want it to take long or create a mess on my new countertops. So I decided to use an adhesive tile mat along with mosaic tile sheets, white grout, and a sponge so that I could complete this project start to finish in just one day. The adhesive mat comes on a roll, and I found that it was best to hold the roll essentially up against the bottom of the cabinet and allow gravity to help it hang down straight. Try to position it properly the first time. When it came to the outlets, I made sure the power was off and I simply cut the mat with a razor blade so that I could create an opening around the outlet and disposal switch area. It took me only about half an hour to get the entire backsplash area on this small kitchen done. When I was ready to place the tile, I removed the white cover sheet. My tiles were 12 inches and the mat's 12 inches, but in order to properly place a tile, I didn't just remove one sheet, I removed two. This way, I would have a bit of a larger sticky surface area and also not risk pulling up my tile when removing the next adhesive cover sheet. You can use spacers when installing the tile sheets, but I felt comfortable working without them. The work progressed pretty easily, and I was lucky that, at the first corner, the tiles ended in just the right spot. But when I got to the second corner, I wasn't quite so fortunate. I needed just a little bit more tile to get to the end. So I measured the distance, and then I measured and marked it on the back of the tile sheet. My husband was helping me out at the tile saw while I was doing the installation, and he went ahead and cut right down the tile mosaic sheet for me. I loved how the other end of the tile sheet turned out. It had that great cut, and I was able to just stick that in place along the other corner wall, and the tile looked like it professionally made itself around the corner without any break in the pattern. Super satisfying. When I got to the outlet and light switch area, I was able to press the tile into place just very lightly and then cut away the tile. I made sure only to cut the mosaic tile netting and not cut the adhesive on the wall. After all, I needed the adhesive to stay there because I was going to cut the tile down to size and install them there so that they could go around the opening. The great thing about this project is that there's no downtime, so I was ready to grout already. You should use a grout float to add the grout, but I'll be honest, I find it so difficult to maneuver a grout float. I cheated. I used a plastic putty knife to help me get the grout into the tile and into the crevices. It is not the traditionally recommended way to add grout, but I'm being transparent and letting you know that this is what worked for me because I felt like I could really get the grout into the spaces really well. I added the grout and then went over it with a damp sponge to get the grout residue off of the tile surface. I rinsed and repeated the cleaning with the damp sponge several times. I added the outlet covers, my decor items, and then I was done. It was a really quick and easy project, and I think the kitchen really changed as a result. I love the way it looks. I was shocked to see how the stove now looks glaringly almond, whereas before, when everything around it was yellow and brown, it looked white. I hope this inspired you to try a DIY tile backsplash project of your own. Today, I'll show you how $35 in tile can transform your bathroom, and it's not in the way you think. I had seen this hexagonal mosaic tile that I really loved, so I bought several sheets and got to work with it. I removed the tiles from the mosaic tile backing sheet. The reason I removed them instead of using them on the sheet as they are is that the sheet itself has spacing on there where grout would normally go. But I definitely don't want to put any grout on this project. I just want to put the tiles right up next to each other and have them create one solid design. I added liquid nails to the backs of the tiles and started mounting them to the mirror. I first created one row along the bottom and didn't worry about the mirror clips. I used flat mirror clips and I worked right over top of them. I just added a little bit more liquid nails to the pieces that were going over the clips so that they would grip well. Then I added a second row of tiles, and after that I started working my way up the sides of the mirror. I did get a little bit of slippage of the tiles, and when I did, I started adding tape as needed. I also alternated between working on the left side or right side just to give a chance for the liquid nails to dry a bit. It took me about 45 minutes to get the tiles done all the way around the mirror. The next day I removed the tape, and I love the way it's starting to look. However, there are a few things that still need to be done. There's some liquid nails that I accidentally got onto the front of some of the tiles, so I needed to remove that so that the tiles would look good. I used mineral spirits on a paper towel, which did remove the liquid nail, but it then started leaving behind all of this paper towel residue, so I don't recommend that. I had to switch to like a lint-free cloth, and that worked a lot better. I purchased some black caulking. I added it along the edges. I know this looks like a huge mess at first, but just go with me here. After I added the caulking, I wiped it away using the lint-free cloth with the mineral spirits. That was pretty much it. It was a quick and easy project that took me a couple of hours one night and a couple of hours the next day, and made a huge transformation in this bathroom for a total of only $44. I hope this inspired you to buy your favorite mosaic tile and add it to your mirror and spruce up your bathroom a bit.
Grab a can of shaving cream and a lampshade. Shake up a can of shaving cream and spray it into an aluminum tray that has sides. Using a squeegee, smooth out the shaving cream in the tray. Next, prepare your dye colors. You can use ready mixed or mix it yourself. Using a dropper, I used a turkey baster, drop bits of the dye onto the top of the smooth shaving cream. Take your lampshade and slowly roll the shade in the dye-covered shaving cream. Once you are satisfied with the color of the shade, rinse the shade thoroughly with water in the sink.
We are going to make some beautiful home decor items using clear Elmer's glue. We are going to fill this vase with the clear glue. Then we're going to add in some clear and white decorative pebbles. Now I'm going to grab some faux flowers. Now I'm just going to stick these into that glue. Once you've got them arranged just right, set this aside and let it dry.
Take a bowl and cover the bottom in plastic wrap. Next, use a sponge brush and Mod Podge. Cover the entire bowl base with Mod Podge on the plastic wrap. Take rope and begin from the center of the base and wind it around towards the outer part of the bowl. Once completely dry, remove rope layer from the bowl and any excess plastic wrap.
What I did was I laid out some cardboard, spray painted it a couple of times to make both boards the exact same length. You're gonna take your first hula hoop that's already painted, and you're gonna set it on top of the boards. Then what we're gonna do is drill through all four corners here. You're gonna put one of your hooks in with it. Make sure it's facing up and you'll screw it through it. We're gonna do the same thing over here. Now what we're gonna do is turn it around and do the other side. We're gonna take a little bit of dab of glue right next to the screw, take the rope and just gently wrap it around the loop.
You know all those lonely donated lampshades? Pick up a matching pair. Pick up a thrifted belt. Run a bead of clear glue around the perimeter. Take the other lampshade, place it on top of the other lampshade. Take some jute twine and tie the inner hardware of the two lamps together. Give the connected shades a little shake to make sure they are securely connected. Take the belt and buckle it around the skinny center of the two lampshades. Add a little glue to the loose end of the belt and secure it to the rest of the belt. Find a thin wood circle disc. Paint the edge with some acrylic paint. And peel and stick wallpaper is perfect for this project. Next time you are at Walmart, grab a large plastic bowl or pasta bowl and a cereal bowl. Flip the large bowl over and apply a ring of clear adhesive glue around the perimeter of the bowl bottom to secure the two bowls together. Take some decorative rope and hot glue it around the center where the two bowls meet. Fill this bowl with water and add some floating candles.
Today's project starts with a pool noodle. We're going to take a piece of duct tape and use that to hold it in place. Once we got our three rings together, we're going to stack them up. Once I get that, I'm going to cut some more pool noodles and they're going to stack inside. We need them to be level with the top. Start on the outside and work your way to the end. Now you're going to start on one end and go ahead and slice your tape and put it on the bottom. Go across the three pool noodles, across the top, down the bottom. We're actually going to need to cover the whole thing in duct tape because we're going to need to apply some hot glue to it. And then right in the middle, I'm going to put a first dab of hot glue. I'm going to take this rope right here, this cotton rope, and go ahead and put it on there.
Grab a waste paper can that has a flat bottom. Spray paint it any color you want. Flip the painted trash can upside down and glue a melamine charger plate. Once secure, apply clear adhesive glue to the perimeter. Center a woven placemat on top of the charger.
Let's head over to Dollar Tree and we're going to grab a paper towel holder. Let's all run down to the hardware store and grab us a wood round. Gotta sand the edges. Got to condition the wood. Let it dry about 30 minutes to an hour. Once it dries, it's time to put on some stain. We're going to get 3 of those paper towel holders and we're going to set them in place. What we need to do is paint them. Once we get it all painted, let it dry. Now we got to curve the edges a little bit and bend them. Don't bend them too far, just get them a little 20 degrees and we're going to do all 3 at the same angle. Now we're going to put them in place on the bottom of our wood round. And I'm going to take these little electric hooks that I got out of the hardware store and I'm going to put 4 all the way around each side of these circles here. And once I got them marked, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill. I'm going to go ahead and put little tiny screws in and hold these clips in place. And I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue. And then I'm going to take some twine. I'm going to set it there and then I'm going to start wrapping it all the way around.
rip down all the fabric off of my lampshade. So I'm going to take it outside and give it a quick spray paint. And then after that, I decided I needed to spray paint one more thing, and that was a mason jar sealing part of the lid that I'm going to use later on. I'm going to take this wood slice. I'm going to give this a good coat of sealer. I'm also going to do like the live edges. And once that's all sealed, it's going to be time to grab that mason jar lid and drill a tiny hole in the middle. And now it's time to assemble. I have some E6000 industrial glue that I'm putting in a little hole where like a finial for a lamp would go. And that's where I'm going to kind of adhere that mason jar sealer. I'm going to put some more E6000 glue along the rim here. So I'll go ahead and set that down. Got it in place, and now it's time to drill. It's all good. Gonna flip it up.
You want to pick up 2 bowls. Make sure they are ceramic or glass and that they are heat proof. I took them home and I'm going to give them a coat of spray paint. Once the paint is dry, these bowls have a really nice textured look. I'm just going to use some really strong glue to adhere them together. In the top bowl, I am going to add 3 wicks. I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue to secure them to the bottom. Then I'm going to grab 2 wooden skewers and wrap the wick around the skewers. This is just going to hold everything in place. Great way to make your own candles is to reuse existing candle wax. I have a couple of these Dollar Tree tall pillar candles, and I'm going to place them in some boiling water. Now make sure you're wearing gloves. These can get really hot. And I'm just going to gently boil this until all the wax is melted. Pour the wax from all the candles into a metal container with a handle. I'm opting to add a little essential oil for some scent. And now we're just going to pour that melted wax. Then you're going to want to walk away for about 24 hours. When it is completely set, you can trim the wicks down and use your candle.
Time to break out of jail. That is, the Walmart ball jail. You also need some green reindeer moss. Start by spray painting the Walmart ball with moss green spray paint. Separate the large pieces and stretch out any chunks that are thick. With a can of General Spray adhesive, spritz a small portion of the ball with the adhesive. Take a small patch of green moss and press it onto the ball in the sticky area. Press and hold for a few seconds to make sure it sticks. Continue to spray the ball and attach the green moss to the outside. Once you cover the entire ball with spray adhesive and moss, give the entire moss-covered ball an overall coat of the spray adhesive.
We're going to start today's DIY with a remote-controlled light bulb. So we're going to take that little holster and we're going to glue that to the top with hot glue. And then we're going to put in our light bulb. We're going to take a clamp so that we can add that on top in order to hold your lampshade. Take that finial piece, screw that back on so it's nice and snug.
If your dining room table is ever feeling empty after the holidays, pool noodles from Dollar Tree make for an easy fix. The first thing I'm doing is taping these pool noodles together in 4 different areas to create stability. I'm establishing my base layer of florals by spreading the stems sporadically throughout the noodles. Now it is time to add the main focal piece, but before I do that, I need to add 2 cable tie mounts to the top and the bottom of the sign so I can attach my pipe cleaners and floral stake. Here it's as easy as taking the sign and directly placing it into the pool noodles, securing it with some hot glue. On the back side, I'm placing another one to give it that full watermelon shape and allow your design to be double-sided. To ensure the sign doesn't wobble, I'm placing stakes in between to secure it. Now I'm going to be adding those larger florals from the previous bouquet evenly throughout the design. On each side of the sign, I'm placing 2 medium bows. Before making this bow, I'm first going to start with making a dovetail. To start the bow, I'm going to first make a dovetail. Then I'm going to make 2 loops on one side and 1 on the other. Each loop and tail will be 6 inches in length. For the next 3 ribbons, we're going to be repeating this process. The bow is then going to be secured in place by the pipe cleaner. To fluff the bow, the loops will be separated from the tails to make it more full. Now that the bow is fluffed, I'm going to attach it using the pipe cleaners. Now I'm going to make 2 small hand bows using the 1.5-inch ribbon and attach them to the front of each sign. I'm taking this floral stem and cutting it into 2 pieces and filling it in where you can see the pool noodles. With the design filled in, the last step I need to do here is to add some florals between the 2 signs to give it that little extra fullness and to fill in the gap. And voila, a wonderful piece that you can add to your table, fireplace, in any other area, or even float it in your pool.
Today we're working with pool noodles. First you want to cut the pool noodle in half. Right here is the middle. So we're going to cut this in half, just like that.
Now you've got 2, and then we're going to do the same thing to the blue. Cut it right there. Now we're going to slit them right down the center. So I'm going to cut it literally. Now this time I am going to cut all the way through, right to the center, just like that. And then we're going to fold our noodle open like this. I have a shorter piece of the pool noodle that I'm going to cut in half, and I'm going to use as my base to create my raft. So I'm going to cut this all the way through. Make sure you cut that. Okay. And then I'm going to turn these upside down, and I'm going to attach these just like that to create my raft. So I want to have my flat surface against this, the open side. So I'm going to put my glue, and again, this is cool melt, so it's not super, super hot. Put your glue on your noodle, and then you're going to place that just like that. Okay, so now I'm attaching the second piece. I'm going to go and make sure that I've got enough glue. It's a little harder for the glue to come out when it's cool melt, but again, you don't want it on high, because if it's on high, it will totally melt the noodle. We don't want to do that. And we will insert our third piece and do the same thing. So now I am just repeating the same process. I am putting the glue on the back side of the noodles, and I'm going to attach my support. And now we're going to do this, and we're going to hold this until it dries. Okay, our glue is dry, so now I'm going to trim off the ends of my support pieces, and then I'm going to trim the ends. And I think the best way to do this is to turn it over and to use some kind of a straight edge. I'm using a ruler to get a straight cut to trim the ends of your raft. So we are now going to put a tray on here, and we're going to decorate it. Now I'm going to decorate it. I'm using some faux lemons. You can see that I've just poked the little stem through the seam of the noodles. I'm going to place my tray on here so I know where my tray is going, and then I'm going to poke my other one through on this side, just like that. Now I've got one flip-flop already attached, and I'm going to show you. I just simply put some glue on the side, and I just want my flip-flops to look like handles. And I'm going to attach my flip-flop just like that. I've got my pitcher of water, and I've got 2 cups of ice. And we're going to slice up a lemon and add that to our water. So I've slit this piece of pool noodle down the center, and I'm going to cut 4 7-inch slices. So just take your marker and your ruler and mark every 7 inches, and then we're going to use a kitchen knife, a serrated knife, to cut our sections. And it's quite easy. Just line it up with your mark and then just go back and forth, and it cuts quite nicely. So next you want to put your cut ends in the center together and glue them together. You want to use a cool melt glue gun because you don't want the glue to melt the pool noodle. And if it's too hot, it will. So just make a nice line or 2 of hot glue right where we cut that seam, and put 2 of them together like this. Then we're going to put 1 on either end. So we're going to do the same thing. Actually, you just need to do it in the center. You don't need to do it the whole length. of the noodle and just glue one end on, and then we're going to do the same thing with the second piece. We're going to glue, we're making a mini raft. We're going to glue that on, and then you want to hold this until it's dry. Okay, now that you've let this dry really well, put your cup in the middle that you're going to use, draw a circle, and then we're going to take a serrated knife. I have a very large knife. You don't necessarily need this big of a knife. And you want to cut, but you don't want to cut all the way through. You just want to go through to the center and cut in your circle. When I cut that seam in the center, it worked really well because then you can just remove this piece and then insert your cup and you're ready to float. We are going to cut 2-inch sections of our pool noodle, so approximately here. And I like to use a big serrated knife and just cut straight. And then just take this one and you can measure approximately where you need to be, and you need to have 7 of these. So this is how we're going to get our flour. We're going to have 1 in the center and 6 around the outside. Now we are going to use these little battery operated tea lights, and we're going to place it on the top using an X-Acto knife. You want to cut all the way around, going all the way down. Okay, once you've gone all the way around, you can see how it's loose here. I'm just going to pull it down and then cut that small piece out of my noodle. Just like that. And then your candle will fit in there just like this. Now we have all of our pieces cut and our candles are all put inside. Now there's plenty of room so the water should not hit the battery. You can put a piece of saran wrap under the votive if you choose. But now I'm going to connect them. I'm using a hot glue gun, but it is on a low temperature because if you use a high temperature, it really melts the pool noodles. So just use the low heat hot glue gun and place it onto the center one. Now the second one you want to do in the center, and you want to do it on the side, and then attach that one. And we're going to go all the way around. Now, like I said, I have a big rubber band in my hand, and I'm going to put that around here and let this dry. If you need to put a little dab of glue in between anywhere, it's best to do that when the rubber band is on, because the rubber band will hold this together quite nicely, as you can see. So our candles are done now. So you want to remove the rubber band, and they're all dry, and then once it's dark, we will turn our candles on and float them in the pool.
Grab a couple of larger sized plastic planter pots and a clear round tray. Flip one of the pots over and hot glue the bottom of this pot to the bottom of the other pot. Grab a wire mesh trash can from the dollar store. Take a remote-controlled puck light. These are available at Amazon and attached to the inside bottom of the trash can. Now flip the trash can upside down and hook one end of the chain to one side of the basket bottom. Next, take a length of greenery garland and cut it into roughly 12-inch pieces. Now take some florist wire and start to wire the garland pieces to the top.
Pick up 2 matching plastic pots from Dollar Tree. Drill holes into the bottom of each for drainage, then use some hot glue to glue them together. Pick up some of this rope. Use it with hot glue and coil it around. I'm choosing to create an oval. You could also create a circle depending on the space. I used 7 coils of jute. Grab the tumbling tower game from the toy section. You can leave these as is. I chose to add a light stain to mine. I'm creating a flat base with 4 of the blocks. Glue them together with wood glue so they really hold up. Then I'm going to add legs to the outside. I've created a couple different heights with the legs.
Ran down to the dollar store and picked up some pool noodles. I cut them in half lengthwise. I made sure to cut the pool noodles to the length of the bench seat, and I secured it in place using a staple gun. At this point, I also added some fabric. I chose outdoor fabric because I knew that my bench was going outdoors. I secured this in place as closely as I could to the bottom of the pool noodle, put the fabric over that piece, and secured that piece again. And I continued this pattern of noodle, fabric, so that I could create tufted channels, and the fabric would look like it goes all the way down in between the different pool noodle pieces. When I got to the end of the bench, I again took that last piece of pool noodle, wrapped it around the back edge of the wood, and secured it in place. Now I needed to add the legs. I had ordered these legs off of Amazon. All I had to do was secure them in place using the screws that came in the box. I grabbed 1 basket and 10 of these wooden pieces. I set to work staining them using these easy staining cloths. Once they were dry, I set up 2 of the wooden pieces vertically, and then I added the rest of my wooden pieces horizontally. Used some 1-inch nails and put those in place. I had purchased these 4-inch house numbers. I nailed these into place. The next thing I did to finish it up was to add some pretty flowers.
I have got these melamine plastic plates I just picked up at the dollar store. I've also got a couple of these larger silver coloured plates. That's isopropyl alcohol. I've just cleaned the plate with that. I'm going to take a little bit of alcohol here. I'm just going to squirt it onto the plate. And then I've got these really lovely, I'm going to drop a little bit on here. I'm just going to move this around a bit to start with. Alcohol on there. There we go. Here we go. A little bit more of that. You can use a hairdryer or a heat gun. I'm just going to go around and around in circles and just see if we can get some nice kind of edges. Okay, now because this is alcohol ink, I'm actually going to seal it with this Kmart varnish. The second version that I'm going to do on these little plates is I'm actually going to use these stick and style stencils. This I've already coated with a second coat of paint. Okay, let's take this stencil off and see how it looks. Our third technique that we're going to create on these plates is going to be, we're going to go full Jackson Pollock. Next up, we're going to use this silver bullet. Exactly the same. I think we can do that on one of our smaller plates.
Grab a Dollar Tree solar light and one of those tall glass vases. Put the base of the solar light into the vase and then fill around it with some decorative stones. Remove the top of a solar light and wrap some floral wire around it to create a swing. Place this inside a paper lantern. Grab a few small clay pots, place a solar light into the middle, and fill around it with stones to hold it in place. Grab a larger planter, place a few solar lights in it, and then fill around it with rocks.
Today we're working with pool noodles. First, you want to cut the pool noodle in half to slit them right down the center. And then we're going to fold our noodle open. So I'm going to cut this all the way through. And then I'm going to turn these upside down. So I'm going to put my glue. This is cool melt, so it's not super, super hot. And then you're going to place that. Okay, so now I'm attaching the second piece and we will insert our third piece. Okay, our glue is dry. So now I'm going to trim off the ends. We are now going to put a tray on here and we're going to decorate it. Cut 2-inch sections of our pool noodle. We're going to have 1 in the center and 6 around the outside. And we're going to place it on the top. You want to cut all the way around. Cut that small piece out of my noodle. And then your candle will fit in there just like this. Now I'm going to connect them. I'm using a hot glue gun, but it is on a low temperature. I have a big rubber band in my hand and I'm going to put that around here and let this dry.
Head over to your local Walmart and grab a few sprigs of greenery. I placed the pool noodle next to the top of the planter and marked the lines. Then I cut the pool noodle with a knife to the mark. After that, I placed the pool noodle pieces along with some empty water bottles inside the planter to keep everything in the center and weighted down. Then I placed the sprigs of faux greenery inside the holes of the pool noodles and fluffed it all out.
grabbed some solar lights from Dollar Tree to create this outdoor decor. I'm gonna grab a pool noodle as well. I'm gonna cut this into small 1-inch sections, and then I'm gonna paint 3 of those sections a really dark black color. I picked up this really heavy metal candle holder from a thrift store. Now I'm gonna put it all together. Then I can grab my solar lights, pull off that bottom, I don't need that, and I can glue each of the lights into the center of the pool noodle. Grab a solar light, pull off the stake, we don't need that part. Then use some hot glue to add it to a metal sconce. I picked these up at the thrift store, they're nice and heavy. Then use a screw hook in a fence or a deck and hang the sconces outside.
We are going to start with 7 of these bowls. You're also going to need some E6000. Just basically go around. You're going to place it on top. We're going to do this again. So I'm going to give these a little bit of time to cure. I'm going to be taking my E6000 and I'm going to go around the top of this, stack it on top, and we're going to do this one more time. I am using Dixie Belle Vintage Duck Egg Chalk Paint. So I'm actually going to use E6000 for this step. Line it up. And then we're gonna let that sit until it dries. And we are gonna trace around the inside of the hole that I created. You actually will not need to paint the underside, just the sides and the top. I'm gonna start with the bottom part, tilt that up. So we are going to take a solar light, placing it over, put the top part of our solar light, and it's gonna nestle right in.
Headed down to my local Dollar Tree. I'm gonna start with these glass beads. I'm gonna also head over and get some rubbing alcohol. Next, I grabbed this bowl, got it from Home Depot. I'm gonna grab some sand, start putting it in the bottom. So you wanna fill it up to where when you get your bowl, you're gonna kind of be level with the top and it has a firm foundation. Let's go ahead and start putting some more sand in so that it holds it in place. To level it out. Make sure that bowl is firm. We don't want any spillage or that thing moving when we light it up. Go ahead and put the metal bowl in, and then remember those glass beads and start placing them all the way around. Take that rubbing alcohol and pour a little bit in there. Give it a little bit of a flame and it's gonna light right up.
Grab some solar flowers from the Dollar Tree. Cut and use some scrap foam to adhere to the inside of the planter pot. Stick the base of the lantern solar light into the foam. Then stick in faux greenery and a flower solar light. Here's some faux moss to the foam.
I grabbed 2 flower pots of different sizes from Dollar Tree. I used 150 grit sandpaper to lightly scuff up the surface. Then I applied silicone to a plastic lid and attached it to the bottom of the smaller pot. I siliconed all the way around the lid edge to create a waterproof seal. While it was drying, I grabbed some Rust-Oleum stone textured spray paint. I spray painted the outside of both pots and around the inside edge and let it dry overnight. After the spray paint dried, I mixed ready mix concrete in a separate bucket, following the directions on the bag. I carefully placed the wet concrete in the larger bucket. I placed a large rock in the middle to help take up space. The concrete filled the bucket about 1/3 full. I used a scrap piece of 2x4 to tamper down the concrete to get rid of any bubbles and smooth it all out. After the concrete dried, I placed a plastic container in the middle so the smaller pot would sit higher up. I grabbed some garden bed pots from the recycling and used them to fill out the space and added river rock to cover the recycling. I washed another handful of river rock, placed them inside the small pot, and filled it with water. Lastly, I added this solar fountain, and it was a sunny day, so it started working immediately.
We're gonna make a really cute outdoor decoration using hangers and a shower curtain from Dollar Tree. First thing I'm doing is just spreading out the shower curtain. Now I'm gonna grab my hangers, I'm only using 4, and I'm gonna lay these out in a pattern that resembles a butterfly. I'm gonna use a little hot glue to put these together. I'm gonna hold the butterfly in place and cut around the shower curtain roughly the size of the butterfly. Flip the whole thing over. And now I wanna work on securing the shower curtain to the hangers. Shower curtain is now attached, and I'm just gonna go through, do some detail work with my scissors, and I have a set of battery-powered fairy lights. I'm gonna glue the battery pack to the center, then I'm just gonna use a bit of hot glue to tack the lights in place. For the center of the butterfly, I want something weatherproof, so I just grabbed a scrap of wood and cut it down to size, and I'm gonna paint it with black craft paint.
Let's head over to Dollar Tree and we're going to grab a paper towel holder. Let's all run down to the hardware store and grab us a wood round. Gotta sand the edges. Got to condition the wood. Let it dry about 30 minutes to an hour. Once it dries, it's time to put on some stain. We're going to get 3 of those paper towel holders and we're going to set them in place. What we need to do is paint them. Once we get it all painted, let it dry. Now we got to curve the edges a little bit and bend them. Don't bend them too far, just get them a little 20 degrees, and we're going to do all three at the same angle. Now we're going to put them in place on the bottom of our wood round. And I'm going to take these little electric hooks that I got out of the hardware store, and I'm going to put 4 all the way around each side of these circles here. And once I got them marked, I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill. I'm going to go ahead and put little tiny screws in and hold these clips in place. And I'm going to put a little dab of hot glue, and then I'm going to take some twine, I'm going to set it there, and then I'm going to start wrapping it all the way around.
Grab a glass bowl from the dollar store. I'm going to place it upside down on a wood round. Then I'm going to surround the bowl with wood beads. I found these strings of beads at the dollar store. Place a bead of glue around the bowl and then attach the beads. Once the glue is completely dry, I can pull the bowl out of the center. Now I picked up another smaller bowl at Dollar Tree. I am going to place this on the bottom of the wood round to create a pedestal. Now I'm going to grab a larger wood bead and just fill the holes with some air dry clay to create a solid round ball. Give it a coat of spray paint. With everything dry, I'm gluing the larger bead to the bottom of the glass bowl. Then I can just place this bowl right on top that pedestal. Pick up a couple solar lights from Dollar Tree, then grab an empty pickle jar. I'm gonna start by washing this pickle jar really well. I'm just gonna soak it in hot water with soap. It's gonna get all the sticky label off the outside and it's gonna get that pickle smell out of the inside. Then I'm gonna take the dry jar and I'm gonna add pieces of twine to it. To finish off the outside, I'm wrapping a thick piece of rope around the top of the jar. Now I'm gonna fill it with some glass beads. Just pull off the stick that goes in the ground and place the light right in the jar.
Here we have a child's hula hoop that we picked up at the dollar store. So in order to secure our flowers, we're going to have to work in a pool noodle. And all we're going to do is cut through one side of the pool noodle. So what we're going to do is open it up and work it right inside the hula hoop. And we're going to circulate the pool noodle all the way around. So once you get all the way around, you're going to notice that we have a little spot missing. We're going to cut into a second pool noodle and do the same exact process. We can just take some tape and we're going to secure the two pieces together. Now I just have some white satin ribbon. To secure it, I'm going to use a couple floral pins and I'm going to add some hot glue to the ends to really make sure it's nice and permanent. Now what we can do is start wrapping this. Now it's time to enhance this, and all we're going to do is snip off each individual stem. I added a generous amount of hot glue, and all we're going to do is just lift up the ribbon and poke it right in. Up next, we have some dogwood flowers. Now I have this hanging foliage, so we're going to take it, add a little bit of hot glue, just working it underneath the ribbon. To hang this up, I'm going to use some of our wire.
I got both of my bowls from the Dollar Tree. So essentially what we're trying to do is we're gonna glue them base to base. I'm gonna be using E6000 and I'm gonna be using my hot glue gun. So I'm gonna be using chalk paint, honeycomb, folk art craft paint. We're gonna be putting some baking soda in here mixed. We're gonna apply it to the bowl. All right, so we're gonna be using a stone colored Rust-Oleum textured finish paint. We are going to be grabbing about 4 of these candles from Dollar Tree. We are going to melt them, and I took the wicks out and I placed them where I wanted. I'm using skewers to secure it in place. I'm going to be adding my melted wax into this, and I'm actually going to be using a scented lavender. So to start this project, we're going to take 2 of these decorative mirrors and found these 2 hexagon frames from Dollar Tree. So we're going to first disassemble and we're going to spray paint. And all we're going to be doing is we're going to be gluing this decorative mirror to this frame. We're going to take some LED puck lights. They come with these little sheets of adhesive, and we are going to secure it to the back here. Take a bowl and cover the bottom in plastic wrap. Next, use a sponge brush and Mod Podge. Cover the entire bowl base with Mod Podge on the plastic wrap. Take rope and begin from the center of the base and wind it around towards the outer part of the bowl. Once completely dry, remove rope layer from the bowl and any excess plastic wrap.
I have this area in the front of my house that I want to beautify, so I grabbed a bowl from the Dollar Tree and put it over to make sure it fits. Then I went to Home Depot and grabbed some spray foam. Next, what I'm going to do is put the bowl down on a garbage bag, and I'm going to grab the spray foam and start covering all the bowl up. And we're going to go layer over layer. Now, this took about 3 cans, but I want to make sure before I put the next layer on, that's a little bit dry to the touch. Once you get it on, you want to give it about 24 hours. The next step is we've got to carve the foam. Now, you're going to shape this all over. Next step, I'm going to pour some water into a bucket. I'm using Cemental. What we're going to do is mix it. You want to be able to shape it and use it almost like a clay on top of the foam. Go ahead and just start adding it to the foam and just keep smoothing it on. For the second layer, I made it a little more runny. Just go ahead and smooth it in. If it looks a little rough, you can grab a chip brush, dip it in some water, and then you can start smoothing out the concrete that you put on. Now let it dry, and then I took some black paint, watered it down, and I'm going to add a little bit of color to the rock. So I'm going to add some brown to it also. You can go with any color you want. Now I'm ready to cover up the pipe that I want to have hidden,